The question was what's going on between, I'll say myself, the governor, and Attorney General of the United States in regard to marijuana. Frankly, you know what's going on. I'll give you the quick summary. Voters approved legalization of marijuana 55-45 first Tuesday of November. That Friday, the governor and myself have a phone conference with Eric Holder, and we say, okay, here's the situation. The voters have told us marijuana is going to be legal on the state level. They're perfectly entitled to do that. Voters could legalize murder if they wanted to. But we're about to enter into a legislative session. Rules and regulations need to be set. People are going to start investing in this industry and things like that. We need some guidance because all this activity, as you well know, Mr. Attorney General, is in violation of federal law. What are you going to do about it? We need to know that. We want you to tell us by January 9th when the legislative session begins. I'll do that. Well, as you remember, he didn't say anything about it until the following, like late August, September. I honestly believe it was the president's call. And they kind of sent him a memo and said, these are our possibilities. I suspected they would do what they did because when we embarked on the medical marijuana deal, the federal government sent out something called the Ogden memo. A guy named Ogden was the Deputy Attorney General, and he authored a memo that said, he sent it out in January of 2009, just after the Obama administration took office, and said, even though medical marijuana is a violation of federal law, if people are in strict compliance with state medical marijuana laws, we're instructing federal law enforcement not to do anything about it. And so I wasn't surprised when they did a, can't remember what the guy's name is, the next Deputy Attorney General sent out a memo finally in August or September of last year saying, if you're in strict compliance with your state's law, federal law enforcement won't take action against you in regard to recreational marijuana unless one of these three things is happening. There's actually 8 things, but the 3 major things was there's significant diversion to children, there is significant diversion out of state, and there's remains criminal organizations in the business. That's a little bit of a naive statement because a lot of that is going to take place, but it's going to take place under even the thresholds the federal government. I used to be the U.S. Attorney. I know what thresholds are for the federal government. We didn't go out and bust people with small amounts of marijuana. You had to have, 250 pounds before the federal government cared. And so the fact of the matter is there is a great deal of diversion to kids. We have a adolescent marijuana use rate significantly above the national average because their use of marijuana is a function of their perception of risk. We've driven their perception of risk into the ground. They're using more. 23% of teenagers in Colorado smoked marijuana in the last month. 12% of them smoked 20 or more times. That is a ticket to some significant brain development issues. IQ loss, susceptibility to mental health issues including psychosis. I think we're going to pay a fairly significant price. The federal government can't do anything about that. They're not going to stand in front of East High School when a guy comes out of the recreational store and walks over and sells it to high school kids. Diversion. Law enforcement estimated that 1/4 of the medical marijuana grows were diverted out of state. If that is maintained in the recreational area, that's a huge, huge amount of marijuana that's going to flow out of the state. We will be, competing with Mexican cartels in all these other states for the marijuana trade. And then finally, if you think that by legalizing marijuana we got the organized crime out of the drug business, you're naive. I'm not even sure they're going to get out of the marijuana business, but they are chomping at the bit to sell meth, heroin, cocaine to this larger pool of adolescent drug users. So we got our challenges set out for us. Let me, just my final point is in regard to the Attorney General. Yet we have this banking problem. As you know, by law, a federally chartered bank can't knowingly open an account for an activity in violation of federal law. So in order for all these folks out there that are, you know, allegedly keeping books and paying taxes, we really want them to run this money through accounts. It's going to be a lot easier to keep track of. So we'd like to have them banking. And so the Colorado legislative delegation in Congress is saying, you know, make an exception for the states that have legalized marijuana. Apparently there's no appetite for it in Congress. The southern states are saying, hey, that's your problem. If you want to, you know, fry your brains, that's your problem. So then the Department of Justice issues a memo. As some of you in the banking industry know about this. They issued a memo to the banking industry saying, hey, all this is a violation of federal law, don't worry about it. Federal law enforcement won't come against you. Well, I've talked to not only Don Childers from the Banking Association, I've talked to the folks from the big banks in Colorado and saying, wait a minute, you know, we got OCC to worry about. We got all kinds of bank regulators. They're not telling us to ignore the law. And oh, by the way, how do we know the next president of the United States is going to ignore the law? And that's within the statute of limitations. So they're not doing it. Now, I do think a lot of banks will start banking, but it will be the smaller ones, I believe. So that's what's going on.
Let me add another component to that from a real estate perspective, which is my primary business. Right now, if you have a building that's in a grow area, which there are a few in Denver, the prices that these people are willing to pay for these buildings is double and triple what a normal occupant can pay. So you say, well, how does that affect me? Well, think about if you have a widget company, an HVAC company, any kind of company, they can't get access to space. And if they can get access to space, that cost is going up significantly for them, which will be passed on to you, or those companies will go out of business. And so there's some unintended consequences with regards to that law that we don't, you know, we see the headlines on the newspaper, but as an example, in Montbello Industrial Park, basically I-70 in Havana right now, the vacancy rate is less than 3%. So if you have an industrial company, you can't find space in Montbello Industrial Park. And you can't afford to be there because any of the growers will price you out all day long. As an example, $4 a square foot might be the rate. The marijuana people will pay $12 to $17 a square foot triple net. That's what I charge for this office building that I own right here, to give you context.
The question is, Colorado takes these proceeds that are gained in violation of federal law and puts them in the bank. Are they able to take those? Guess what? Yeah, they are. Yeah. By the way, Brian, I got a question for you. So how many floors here are marijuana grows?
Certain things we can't disclose. No, I'm just kidding. None.
Yeah.